too.
Yes, we are now live and they can see us too. Good morning, afternoon. It is now 12:02. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. My name is Amanda Hale, and today we are going to be presenting Capstone project. And they can see us too. Hi. Good morning, afternoon. It is now. Okay, it started playing, so I can. Our students have been working for the last 12 weeks, actually even longer than that if we include our pre-work time. Our students have been learning the basics of web development, and I have been helping them along with that, along with our wonderful TA Eric and our other TA Asia, who could not be with us today. We are here today to see all of the wonderful things that they have come together and built with that knowledge that they have been working on. I want to thank everybody at home for joining us, friends, family, anyone who happened to just find us, welcome. And I also would like to thank our support staff, through all the TAs, all of the additional technical interview support, all of our career staff, as well as the rest of the instructors. Great, I'm gonna let Peter and Rachel introduce themselves. They're gonna be our panelists today. So the students will take turns presenting, and then as they finish up, each panelist will ask a couple of questions to our student, and we will go from there. Peter, would you like to get started?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Peter Jang. I am the Dean of Instruction at Actualize. I also teach the evening classes, or some of the evening classes here. I've been here for almost 5 years now, maybe a little bit longer. So yeah, I've walked a lot of students through this same path, and I know the amount of hard work that it takes to, to do this career change and learn how to do all of this stuff from scratch. And for some people, completely expose themselves to a brand new field. So it's really impressive, and I'm really looking forward to seeing, the culmination of all that hard work. Yeah, and I just wanted to say, in advance, congratulations to all of you for doing this and, putting in, I know all of the time and the passion and the energy. And I also wanted to, extend that congratulations to, Amanda, Lisa, Eric, and everybody who supported the Grads Through the Way. And yeah, I'm really excited to see everybody's projects.
Great, thank you, Peter. And our other panelist today is Rachel Farrell. You're on mute.
Hi, everybody. Let's see. My name is Rachel Farrell. I completed Actualize in spring of 2019. In June of 2019, I started with a company called Smart Things. We do home IoT work. It's based out of Minneapolis. I was a complete shift in career for me, and so I know what you're feeling. You can do it. You are doing it. And I'm really excited to see everybody's final project and the springboard for getting out into the world doing coding.
Delightful. Thank you so much. All right, let's go ahead and get started. First up today, we have got Chelsea. Chelsea, take it away.
Okay. Hi, my name is Chelsea Roston Rapazzo, and my app is called Merrymaker. It's for an app for people like me who love a good theme or aesthetic for an event, especially when they're the guest of honor. So this allows you to share ideas, invite friends to view it, comment, and make celebrations of your own. So I'm going to start by logging in to my app. There we go. Okay, and so when the user will log in, it'll take them to their profile, and on their profile, so this is their profile, and so on their profile, they have an option to have an image. It'll have their name, email. It'll list the groups or the cabals that they're in. I also set up an invitation system that allows you to join a cabal via an invite. So let's see, I have one. So if you join it, and then when the page refreshes, it should show up. And then it'll have, then you're in a new group. So, and you can also create a group from here too. Let's see. And then you can view your public profile, which will have your mood board, which I'll show in a second. So back on your page, on your profile page, you can see the groups you're in. And so on this is like basically your group like homepage. So it'll show the people who are in the group. This is where you can populate the random token that you can send to someone to join the group. And then you'll see the events that your group, that is a part of your group. So on here, and so this user, Anne, she's the celebrant, the guest of honor. So she's the person who's created this group. So she basically owns the celebration. She made everything. She has the ability to add guests. So if she wants to add this person's already in the group, so she can't add them. And if let's find someone else to add. She could add this person and then they're added to the group. And then down here, we have the ability to leave comments, which I thought was fun. So I also added on a package that can do emojis. So to do a comment, and so she can post a comment, and then it's there. And so one of my nice to haves was to have sort of like a visual like mood board with pictures. And so my initial plan was to do Pinterest API, but their API basically you could just pull in a board. So I wanted to do something better with images. So I used the Pexels API in my back end, and then it'll, when you do a search, let's say we want to see cats, and then it'll pop up the pictures. And then I used another package to do some code to pick, so you can select a picture. This guy, so you click this, you can pick which group to add it, which celebration to add it to. You can pick that, and then it'll add it to your mood board. And then there's also an option to upload a picture if you didn't see anything you really liked. Just for purposes. So this will add that, and then you can pick a celebration to add it to. And that should, oh, there we go. Anyway, so the other thing I have too is the gallery where you can see all of the images and like mood boards you're part of. So here's this one. And so he just got added right there. And then another one that she's part of. And so basically any like celebration you're a guest of, you can view the mood board that the celebrant has created. And I wanted to do something with the color palettes, but getting with the APIs and the colors, it was too much. But thankfully the Pexels API I use comes with a average color hex code in your JSON. And so that way, so I just basically use that to populate the color palettes. Let's see. And then you can view all of your celebrations that you are a guest of. So here we go. And you can filter by the status if it's planning or completed. Only a celebrant can mark it as completed. You can filter by occasion. So we can say a wake, or is it a bachelorette party? So you can filter by that as well. And then I really enjoyed this. If this is going to work, hopefully, yes, I made an error page. So if you go to wrong page, there's an error page. And then it'll take you to either go back to your home or your profile. Let me see. Let me see what else there's there to show. Oh, and so for the events, if you went to mark it as completed, you mark it as complete. And it's now completed, so you can't change it anymore. And then when you go to back to your celebrations, and then you can see which ones are completed. And I think that is pretty much my app. Thank you.
Excellent. Rachel?
All right. Very cool. I feel like a lot of your personality came through here. I don't know you, but I feel like it probably did. And so I would love to hear about, so you said that you worked with the Pexels API. Tell me about the experience that you had. Were there things that went easier? Were there things that you struggled with but persevered? Tell me about your experience using that API.
I had initially used the Pixabay or Pixabay API, and I had tried to go through my front end. And there were some cores issued. They did not like that. So I did the back end. And then I was using the API, the Pixabay API, and I didn't like the photo options basically. And so I was looking for another one. So I decided I like Pexels. And The only tricky part I had was trying to get the right size image to come through, because they, on the Pexels API, they have small, medium, large, extra large photos. And so I was just trying to get one to come by, and it took a bit of finagling, but then it started working. So yay.
Okay. Can you tell me about probably the biggest learning or takeaway that you had in that process?
With the API?
Implementing that API.
With the API, again, I've always struggled a bit with the deeply nested data and the JSON and stuff. And so figuring out, okay, yeah, staring at it, being like, okay, that's an array, that's a hash, but how do I get down to that? What I want to call that? And so I finally figuring that out was just like, this made me so happy. So that that thing, yes, those hashes and that array, I can. But yeah, so that.
Congratulations. Where do you want to, if you had another week to implement something else from your nice to have list, what would you add on to your app?
I would work on, I really wanted something where you could send out like all the celebration information via like an email or something. And I know Rails has like action mailer, so I was looking into using that. And I had set like a sign up email, but I couldn't really test it. And so that would be something. And then maybe setting up Rails active storage to do, so when people upload the images, so they're not just chilling on the board, on the table. So I was looking at Cloudinary or something like that. So to host those images instead of having this like big, gigantic, long data on my tables.
Wonderful.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Chelsea. Next up, we have Paige, and Peter will be paneling for Paige.
Alrighty. Let's see. Okay, can you all see my screen fine? Okay. Hi everybody, my name is Paige. This is my app, Book Stash. I kind of wanted to go over why I built it, a few features, and a few challenges and things I faced while making it. But first, we can log in or create a, well, we can sign up. So first we can create a user. We'll just make tests right now. And let's see. Uh-oh. We're just gonna, it's fine. And okay, then we will go ahead and sign in. Okay, so one thing for me, I created this app because I really enjoy reading books, and I have like an extensive list on my phone of just books that I want to read next. But then I get to the bookstore and I'm just scrolling through this list of like, okay, which one do I want to read next? So this kind of helps in the sense of you can create a book stash, and right here you'll see you have a stash of books you can create as a user. But for now, before you even get to that point, you can click on the book, kind of see what it's about and everything like that. And then you can later, from that point, add this book to your stash. Adding to that to your stash, you'll be able to, maybe if you're in the bookstore, go back to this book now, and you don't have to go searching for what this book is about. You can click back here, get a quick overview. There isn't a limit to how many books you can add. And right now, I currently have the books hard-coded in. I hope in the future development that I can use an API to pull the books through that way. But for now, they're all hard-coded in. Let's see. Yes, you can register, sign up, add the books. We have the books in your stash. Once again, what else? Yeah, you can browse through the books. Additionally, the users don't have the ability to add any books or anything like that. That's all just will be for admin to be able to do, to add more books. I think one of the cooler things that I was able to add and learn from too was you can search the books by their genre, their title. So if we just type in James, you find the books by James or anything like that. If you're just looking for anything fiction, etc., you can do it that way. I thought that was pretty cool. I ended up using View to filter by, where you can just put multiple values in there. You can filter by multiple values. So I thought that was pretty cool. One thing I learned from doing this. I have, as you all see, there's a recommendations button up here. That was one of my nice to haves. I really want to, and as I keep working on this, is to add, once you build up your stash, you'll start being able to get books recommended to you based on what it's seen that you've been putting in here. And I think with the help of that API, adding that as well will help me. So that's what I'm looking forward to in that realm. But yeah, that's it overall. Yeah, browse books, add a stash, and log out, log in.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Paige. Peter?
All right, Paige. First of all, the app looks fantastic. And before we get into it, I just have to say that's some impeccable taste in books right there. I'm seeing some James Baldwin, Alchemist. I've read not all of them on the list, but I can see which ones I'd start to put into my collection right off the bat. Yeah. So in your app, what feature did you enjoy building the most?
Feature I enjoyed building the most. Okay. I think this is going to sound really crazy, but I was really excited once I got it to work where I would go to my stash and get this to route back to this page. Now, that's just one that got me really excited when I got it to work because it was a little rough for a moment. But I think this filter, I thought that was really cool because I really wanted to find a way to filter the books. And I think that was a learning experience for me because I didn't know how to do one of those prior to. So that was it for me, using the View 2 filter.
Yeah. It's definitely a sharp looking app. Did you enjoy working on the back end or the front end more?
Okay. So I enjoyed working on the back end more because it felt a little easier, but I was definitely looking forward to the front end because I knew it was going to challenge me in some more areas and where I wasn't as sure about. So I guess at the end of it, I did enjoy working on the front end more, just from the sense of the aha moments that I got from it.
Yeah, absolutely. I know this you said was in the nice to have features that you're going to add for the next version, but were you able to look into some different book APIs? Were there ones that you were starting to dig into?
Yeah, I was starting to see, what's the site called? Goodreads, looking into their API some to see what I could do with that. Hadn't quite ventured over to Barnes & Noble yet, but I caught up digging into Goodreads. But I think Goodreads might be a good option for me in adding that feature on.
Yeah. Only reason I bring it up is because I was messing around with something like this for a personal project and just recently found Google Books has an API and you don't even need an API key. And I don't think this used to be true. Like when I was researching 3 years ago, like it was really hard to get book data. So I totally empathize. Like I found a really crappy book API and it was the only free one that I could use. And I was just like, man, like I can't get really good book data. So I know it's a struggle. But recently I found the Google Books API, which I don't think existed back then. It's pretty sharp, and I think it would really be a very nice compliment to what you have here. Yeah, cool. No. I think it's pretty recent. Cool. And then are there any other features for V2 that you were thinking of that you didn't mention in your presentation?
Definitely there. So let me put it in here. So right now, if you go to your stash, all the books currently are listed as future reads that's the default when you add it. Oh, I forgot to mention you can delete a book. But sorry about that. They're all listed as future reads. I do want to be able to sort it as books you've read and then books you want to read, because the books you've read will also play into the recommendations. The future reads don't necessarily need to add to recommendations you haven't read it yet. So I don't need that to mess up what you have going for as far as recommendations. So I do want to be able to distinguish between the read and future reads and have the recommendations pulled from that.
Yeah. Now, just last question, the recommendations, is that meant for like the app recommending new books to you or you finding other books that other users recommend? How is that feature supposed to work?
I was thinking specifically the app recommending new books to you, but maybe coming soon to iOS 10, maybe somebody else, other people can start recommending books to you on later developments. But for now, it was definitely for just based on what you have read and it recommending just specifically from your own reads.
Yeah. Like I said, very impressive app. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Paige. Next up, we've got Tim, and Rachel will be paneling for Tim today.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm Tim, and I'm going to get started here. Just get this out of the way. Okay, so this is my app. It is called Ike Hawaii. It was inspired by my recent move to the Big Island of Hawaii. This island is different than a lot of the other islands in that it's a little more rugged, a little more off the beaten path, and it's massive. And a lot of people, when they first come here, are kind of overwhelmed with the options, as well as like the distances, and it's really hard to sort of figure out what they want to put on their list and how they should do it. So essentially, this is a travel experience library and a trip planner for people who want to visit the Big Island. Ike means to see, to know, and to experience, hence the name Ike Hawaii. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to sign up a new user, and we're going to sign up Estelle Getty. She wants to come. And let's see. Sophia. Sicily is her password. You know, she's always talking about Sicily. All right, she's signed up. It's going to take you to the login page. Okay. Great. Now, the first thing that happens is that we want to find out what dates Sophia is coming to the island. So she's going to come for my birthday, which is May 25th. So she's going to arrive the 23rd and depart the 27th. All right, so that submits there. And this populates her trip calendar. So her trip calendar right now is empty. And this is a slider that I had a lot of fun building, just a simple CSS slider. But basically what you can do with this is you pick a day, you want to add an experience to that day. It's going to take you to our experience list. This is a list of all the experiences of places you can visit on the island. Here we have a map of the Big Island, and it is really large. So I thought it would be fun to break it down into regions, as well as categories. So you can filter all of these experiences by region or category. And one way to do that is by image mapping. So I broke up the map by mapping the image using coordinates on the image to define the borders of the areas. And this populates each region by itself. When you click on it, it will tell you where you are. So if you want to go to Puna, it'll tell you Puna. We want to see beaches in Puna. It's going to populate there, and this pulls up just the beaches in Puna. Kahina Beach, one of my favorite beaches, we'll pull that up. That's going to indicate the name, where it is, a picture, it's a black sand beach, and show you the location using a Mapbox API. This will tell you a little bit about the beach, how long we recommend you stay, important information. It's clothing optional, fun. We're going to add that to the list. So now that's going to populate on the 23rd of May. If you want to change your dates, she decides, you know what, actually, I'm going to come on the 24th. We're going to edit it just to make sure. Changing dates can result in deleted experiences if original dates aren't included. So any date that you change, that will delete that item. But she wants to come on the 24th. It is what it is. 24th to the 28th, she's going to submit that. And now she has her new calendar here. I'm going to go ahead and switch to an individual that I already have some experiences populated for. So we're going to log out Estelle Getty, and we're going to log in Barbara Walters. I'm not going to tell you what that password is. It's wild. Okay. All right. So this is Barbara's trip calendar. Okay. She's got a lot more stuff going on here. We'll just take a look at this first one. So she's got 3 experiences. She wants to see the full day. She wants to see what's going on the 17th of May. So this takes you to her day view. All right. So we know she's going to Carlsmith Beach Park to start. It's in Hilo District. We recommend she stays about 3 hours. Next, she's going to the Star of the Sea Church. What's important to note here is that this is going to tell her the driving time between Carlsmith Beach Park and Star of Sea Church. So the approximate driving time between Carl Smith Beach Park and Star Sea Church is 46 minutes. So she can start to take that into account when she's planning the rest of her day out. The same is true between Star Sea Church and Kahina Beach. I don't know why she's going to 2 beaches in one day. Sounds like a lot, but down here we have the time tracker. And basically all of this driving distance is populated via the Mapbox Matrix API, which is a separate additional API to the just regular generic Mapbox API. And what this does is it calculates durations between coordinate points. So here I've got on the map the actual points of each individual location that she wants to go to, and the approximate driving times down here. Now, one thing that I thought would really help someone who is coming to the island is you don't want to just know between the places you're going, you also want to know from your hotel. So in order to get that information, I decided to add this information here. You can populate your starting and end points of your day by entering your hotel name. So she's on Hilo. She's going to stay at the Hilo Hawaiian Hotel. And if she likes, she can populate it with the same as above. And when she submits that, it's going to tell her that the driving distance between Hilo Hawaiian Hotel and Carl Smith Beach Park is 9 minutes. So now she has the total driving time of her whole day. This gets important if you're looking at different regions. You know, like right now, they're just, you know, going from one side of the small parts of the island. But if you do, you know, over here, she's got a little bit more going on. They're on this side of the island, but she's going to start at the Hilo Hawaiian Hotel. And she's going to end on Kona side, which is the Royal Kona Resort. And when you submit that, you see we've got a much longer driving time from one side to the other. So this is just helpful for people who really don't completely understand how long it takes to get from one place to the other. And yeah, so the biggest feature that I almost got to was I have this save day information. This is a PDF generator, and if you click on it, it will download a PDF version of this day trip so that you can send it to, you know, other people who are coming with you. And it does actually work. The only problem is, don't mind that. The only problem is that the images are blocking because they're just images from online. So they are preventing via the cores on the back end, they're being blocked. But if I remove them and I restart, so I've just removed the image from my code because the licensing is blocking, I can then pull up a PDF of my day information. So this is all the information. In time, I would, you know, populate it with my own images, and then that would all be here and ready to send to other guests. So that is Ike Hawaii. That is the length and breadth of my app.
Very cool. I'm not jealous at all. Again, looks like a lot of your own personal experience went into this as far as planning your days out. So working from what I imagine is some sort of paradise, what was your favorite part to work on, front or back end?
You know, what's funny, I enjoy both. I really enjoy databases, and learning about the backend was initially the most intimidating part of this experience for me, but I have a natural affinity for the front end. I love it. I could play with JavaScript all day. Like, all I want to do is, you know, I would say 90% of my time was spent on the front end of this app. I loved playing with the APIs. I don't know. I mean, there are so many tough nuts to crack, and just working through the code was so much fun. So yeah, I'd say front end for me.
So it sounds like you worked with a couple of different Mapbox APIs. If you had to, you know, someone came to you asking, how to do something, what do you think are parts of the API that you struggled with the most, and how would you explain how to help someone else with them?
Yeah, so Vue does this funny thing with the Mapbox geocoding API where the data is inserted as inside of an observer. So you can't directly console log and access JSON data via the console. It will only populate empty arrays through the observer. So I really had to find a way to sort through that information and see what I was getting to. Otherwise, I was kind of coding blind. But I was able to get around that, and then I struggled with the geocoding app again. There's something to do with the response between Vue and the Mapbox API that you kind of have to nest the responses inside of themselves. So each time that you are trying to get new information from the API, you have to nest it. So I have some pretty gnarly JavaScript that I'm just going to show you real quick. That's kind of crazy. This is my get coordinates API. So this is when you're trying to get the hotel information. This is the geocoding. It started off pretty simple. We're making Axios get requests, and then you get down to this then response. You got to nest in another response. Then you got to nest in another response. And that is the only way to get the entire chain to populate. So I didn't even realize you could do that, but it seems to work well. I don't know if it's the most elegant way, but it was really fun working on it. So yeah, that was both a struggle and a victory.
Wonderful. Can you tell me, so as you're struggling with this, did you find any resources online that you felt like really helped you in both either the front end or the back end work?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the Vue docs were actually surprisingly helpful. So that was a great place to start. And yeah, I mean, I had to go through numerous Stack Overflows to sort of figure stuff out. But my biggest tool, honestly, was the console. I mean, using the console and generating errors and working my way through that was the biggest way that I was able to debug this, and just sort of using my knowledge of the way the front end works. So yeah, but I've gotten used to using docs more, and especially like with the PDF generator, that one was really hard. I don't know how many NPMs I went through to get that one to work, but yeah, it's good to feel myself being less frustrated and more excited about debugging. So
wonderful. Plus, as I found, hopefully you found this too, you learn to ask iterative questions, right? Like, oh, that one didn't give me the one that I wanted. What can I change in the code that I asked to get the information that I want? So it looks
yes,
great.
exactly. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you, Tim. Next up, we've got Allie, and Peter will be paneling for Allie today.
Hello, everybody. My name is Allie Neal, and I've made this app called Pokey Moves. I'm sure everyone has noticed that Pokemon had this huge uptick in popularity during COVID because, what else are you going to do but collect cards and play video games, right? So I got back into it myself during that time. I dug out some of my old Game Boys and Nintendo consoles and stuff like that and started playing again. And I realized how difficult it is to keep track of what moves each Pokemon can learn. There are some that you have to purchase from stores in the game or that you happen to find, and then there are others that the Pokemon can learn just by leveling up and, going through the gameplay itself. And then some are learned both ways. So there are databases out there that, provide all the Pokemon information you could ever want, but they're all very deep and extensive. So I wanted to make something that makes it easy for you to, if you're in the middle of the game, just sort of stop and check on your web app and see who can learn what move and, just make it a little easier for everybody. So that's what I've done here. I will go ahead and make a new account. And the way I did this, you can browse Pokemon and moves without having to create an account, but the pages look the same. So I'll just go ahead and start by making one. Let's see. It's taking a second to load. Here we go. So let's just call him John Doe wants some Pokemon. Okay. We'll submit, and that takes you to the login page. And then this redirects you back home. So now you know when you get to the home page if you're signed in or not. So we can go to his profile, which is going to be empty right now. And we want to give him some Pokemon. So let's say he wants a Clefairy. So we have to type in the ID, which is something that in the future I would like to work around so that, you know, the users don't have to know what hard-coded ID is in the database. But right now, this is how it has to work based on the join table that I made. So you can go ahead and add them to your party. And if you go back to your profile, you'll see them there. And you can click on this and it takes you to that Pokemon's show page. It tells you what region they are from, what type they are, and whether or not there's a second type. And then this down here will tell you what moves they can learn. This lets you know if it is a TM or an HM and whether or not it can be learned by leveling up. So in this case, Metronome Clefairy can learn both through leveling and by being taught on its own. But for example, Dazzling Gleam, you have to find a TM for that. And these also link back to the move pages. So I can click on this and it'll take me here and tells me the type of move it is, what category it is, and how it can be learned other than leveling up your Pokemon. And it will also show you what other Pokemon can learn that move. And of course, you can click on that and go back to there. So I've made it very easy to manipulate and sort of fluid so that you can easily get through pages to each other. And if we go back to your user profile and say you don't want Clefairy in there anymore, it's easy to just go in and delete. And then there you go. So we can go to all Pokemon, and I have hard-coded all of this information in here right now. There is a Pokemon API that I want to incorporate, but again, because it is so extensive, I just didn't have time to take out the things that I wanted from it. So that is my next plan, is to use that API once I get some time to work on this again. But so these are all hard-coded. There are Pokemon from different regions, like I said, so it'll tell you on the show page if they're a different region. See here, so I've got a Galarian, Slowpoke, and then one from Kanto, so it's not confusing. And you can click on him and it takes you back to that same show page. And same with the moves, that works, you know, the same way, just click on them and they take you there. And in both Pokemon and moves, I added a view to filter, so you can search by, say you want water type moves. So you just type in water and it shows you the ones that are water type. Or if you want a special move, then that gives you those. And as for Pokemon, you can search by name, region, or type. So say I only want a lowland Pokemon, I just type that in there and there they are. And I've also added a browse users page so that you can see what everybody else has. So I want to see what I have. They're my Pokemon over there. And obviously I took away the edit buttons so that you can't mess with anybody else's stuff, which is important. And if you wanted to change your username, email, or password, you can do that here and just hit submit. I would also like to add a toggle to show the password so that if you're changing it, you know, it's not all dots like that, so you can see what you're doing. So that's one of my other nice to haves. And then if you want to delete your profile, you can do that as well. And that is about it. That's how the app works. And I would like to add on here the ability to search by the Pokemon that the other users have as well, just in case you're curious what kind of lineup they have or anything like that. And to go back to the main idea of this, you know, part of it was so that if you're playing through the game, you get 6 Pokemon in your party, or up to 6. You don't have to keep 6 in there. And this way you can just go to your profile and click on that Pokemon and figure out what moves they can learn. You know, you can keep it up to date while you're playing through the game and do all that stuff. So yeah, that is where it is.
All righty. Awesome job, Allie. So yeah, just I guess first of all, I want to say it's a real nice app that's got you can see there's a lot of mixture between like really nice front end visuals and like the custom fonts and all that kind of stuff, and then the back end with the database and the complexity of associating all that data. Starting at the back end, what would you say? What did you find it to be more complex than you thought? When you first said, "Oh, I'll just model Pokemons and their moves," or was it like super easy to put together with the join tables, all that kind of stuff? How was that experience?
It was definitely something that ended up being more difficult as I went along with it. I ended up needing to add more join tables and things like that because I realized it was difficult to go through, not only who can learn this move, but how do they learn it? And that was something I ran into. And especially with trying to join Pokemon to the users. Originally, I just had to hard code in, what Pokemon you had in your list, but then you couldn't link to that Pokemon's page. So that was something I struggled with. And I did have to make a new join table for that. And yeah, it's certainly something I'm still figuring out because I would like to be able to add like a favorites button to each of the Pokemon. So instead of having to type in which ones you want in your party, you could just in theory go to the all Pokemon page and add them that way. So yeah, I struggled with the complexity of it. It ended up being more complex than I anticipated.
Yeah, for sure. I only bring that up because anybody who's never designed a database before, and most students when they're first tackling their apps, they're just like, yeah, how hard can it be? It's Pokemon and their moves, and then you're digging into it, and you're like, wow, nothing is connecting properly. So anybody who's designed a database, it's impressive to see all the different fields that you can search, and it's actually connecting to those things properly. It's easy to just display data, but to do the filtering and all that kind of connections that where it's actually tied to the right things takes a lot of database design. So that's impressive. On the front end, what was it like, designing this? Because I don't know if you used a custom theme, but it looks like you did a lot of customization just to have the visuals, match like kind of that video game feel.
I did. I started with a theme, but really, I got a little lost in the CSS at one point, trying to, really make it look visually appealing to this type of thing. All the headers like this, I just used a font generator. So, that's an image that's put on there, but I did find a font that I downloaded to make this sort of 8-bit font. And honestly, other than that, that was really all I needed to add to make it feel, authentic. The backgrounds were easy. That, it's something that I just put the same background in every single page. But it was hard trying to incorporate a general theme because a lot of them are very, like clean cut and sort of businessy, not very video game themed.
Yeah. No, I love stuff like this. And the reason I'm asking is because there's no theme you're just going to be able to find that's going to match this kind of aesthetic that you're looking for, because they're all sort of geared towards those, portfolio business kind of things. So I can tell there's probably a lot of work that you have to do to get that going.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. So out of the features that you built, which feature took you the most time, or maybe took you more time than you thought it would?
Probably building all of the rendering partials within partials to make sure I could transfer through the different join tables that I had. The view filters took me a little while too, but that was, once I sort of figured out how that worked, it went pretty fast. But yeah, trying to get all of those tables joined was that's something I held up on, for a long time, just trying to figure out which ones I needed to render in the other ones and that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. And on the flip side, was there any features that ended up being easier than you thought, or were a pleasant surprise when you were building it out?
Kind of related to that, it was once I realized how to do the rendering partials and which ones I did need to get places, it really was a breeze after that to make sure that I was bringing up the right information on the front end. So it was kind of a double-edged sword, it was both the hard part and the easy part.
Yeah, for sure. Well, like I said, it's a really beautiful looking app. I'm sure once you start, getting those final bits of polish, there's lots of people who would want to use it. So
thank you.
Thank you, Allie. Next up, we've got Kelly, and Rachel will be paneling for Kelly today.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Kelly, and my project, my capstone project is Joy Journeys. So essentially my app is used to capture life's little joys by answering the question, what brought you joy today? So we're going to start on this page. For each joy entry, you get to select if it's public or private. And so this one's going to be public. And you can see this takes me to a page of all of my joys. So each user of the app has their own joy journey, and it's a collection of all the small joys that they choose to record either publicly or privately. And we're going to look at my mom's first. So this is a special app because it is inspired from my mom's joy journal. And when I was in middle school, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she fought for about 9 years. And during that time, she developed, I would say, awe-inspiring coping skills. And one of those things was keeping records of joys. And so we have these beautiful handwritten journals of things that just brought her joy every day. So like red roses, which make me think of the roses my husband gave me today, giggles, bite-sized brownies, just little things each day. And so I've always wanted to do something with those, and this idea that just creating a practice of having gratitude each day and thinking of that, and how joy inspires more joy, and that what brings me joy or you joy probably brings someone else joy too. So I always thought that that would be a neat idea to be digitized and be able to be captured. So the first part I was going to talk about is the seed data. So my app, instead of linking to an API, it uses these entries from my mom's journal. And so I got them into the app by using a CSV file. So I had to type all of the joys first. And then this kind of shows how we parsed the CSV file into the app. And it was pretty challenging trying to figure out, how do I get in, like, are there headers? Are there no headers? How do I change the created at an updated date? That was a challenge, because whether I was bringing it in as a string or as a date, how to convert it. And special characters, how commas and quotes and apostrophes were used. So I felt like that was a really, it was a big win when I got those in the correct way. All right, so another cool thing was I wanted to be able to filter by date. So what this is doing is I created a JavaScript method on the front end where or actually it's on the back end, that would take all of the entries in someone's joy journey and then be able to sort them by year. So each person, if we were looking at mine, my joys are grouped by different years than my mother's. So that was a really cool function that I was excited to be able to have work. You can also search by word. So everything, that snow brought joy about. And that was also kind of a cool win. I'll show you that in a minute. So my favorite part of the app is not only can you record joys, search joys, filter joys, but it's this idea of spreading joy. And so this is a reshare. And so this idea is, and I'll show you one. So let's say giggle. And my mom had written, Kelly giggles, bringing me a cup of tea and cinnamon toast. So if we click on that, we can see that this is the start of the joy, because she's the seed data. And we can see that 3 people have said that that spread joy for them. So my husband wrote, hearing Abigail and Abby playing and laughing. So if we click on that, you can see that it starts to show the trail of the joy. So here's the original mom's joy. Here's his, and now there is another joy. If we click on that one, I'm so grateful that our kids have friends that live right across the street. It inspires another joy, great neighbors, such as a COVID pod. And then what are those memories with those neighbors? Oh, there was a Halloween bash. So you can kind of follow the trail of a joy back to its start or to the front and watch how it trails off. So I thought I would show you how that kind of works in the code. So this idea that there's this joy, and then it has inspireds and parents, and that's what kind of populates in the behind into the front. And so that's inspired kind of by this idea of retweeting or reblogging in Tumblr. And it took a while to figure out how the database needed to be set up and how to display the data to be able to do that. But the Tumblr blog, the engineers had these really great visuals, which are right here. And it kind of shows this idea of here's the original joy, it creates a path, it splits, but that you could actually display one joy's path. So it's kind of that same idea. And then how it spreads out and spreads and spreads. And also this idea that although technically, I guess a joy could have more than one parent, that in this app, there's no way in the front end that you could have that. So there really is one parent, and then each joy could have lots of inspireds and then so on from those. And in the back end, because I know it was curious, like, what does the table look like? The relationship table is actually really easy in that it just has the inspired ID and the parent ID. Where it gets tricky is all of these different relationships through, which is really kind of similar to what we did in that through table with Twitter. And then where it gets kind of interesting is this mapping, because it's a joy within a joy, and you have to be able to keep showing joy within a joy, and all of that information that at first I thought, oh, when I make that relationship table, it could just be like joy.inspireds or joy.parents, but that didn't actually give enough information to then go another level in, another level in. So we did the mapping within mapping. And the next part to that was I found right away that bringing in thousands of joys, the speed, even on my local connection, it would take seconds and seconds, you know, if I was going to try to sort it or filter it on the front end. So I had to do that on the back end and add pagination. And so that was an exciting win also, in that I would send across the joy data as an object, and then also Pagey, which was a Rails gem, and that allowed all the pagination kind of information to come in. And then the only other thing was really figuring out how to do searching on the back end, and that my index had a lot of queries for the database of whether, because I wanted to use the same view to be able to show public and private, or searched by a certain term, or filtered by a year, or on this page. And so it had to have a lot of different queries on the back end of, oh, are you logged in? Show it this way. Oh, are you using this parameter for years and this word? So I felt like that was exciting when I got that figured out. But yeah, that's really kind of the MVP. And I have, lots of ideas for what I want to do next that I didn't get done. But I think the key thing is really just how to get data into the app. Something that I'd love to do is be able to have someone choose how often they want to answer the question, what brought me joy? And that could be done by texting. And you could say, hey, every Friday, I want to record what brought me joy this week, or every Sunday. And that a response by text would also go into your joy journey. And then the last piece would be, I think it would be amazing to be able to then have it print and be able to get a printed version of your joys for the year or whatever season in your life. So I think there's a lot of things about, getting into the practice of just answering every day, like what brought you joy, or whatever cadence you would want. Yeah, so that's my app.
Very cool. Very sweet. I can appreciate the origin story. I think it's great tribute to the experience that your mom had and that you're kind of bringing forward. And I see a lot of pride in that for you as you're talking about it. So congratulations on that. Would love to know, so you've got this front end, you've got this back end, and you've talked about some of the wins that you had. If you had to summarize on the back end, what is something that you kind of struggled with and then persevered, and what did you learn from that experience?
Yeah. So I feel like I really had to figure out the clarity of what belongs being processed on the back end versus what belongs being processed on the front end, and figuring out that balance, and then what it looks like. And I would say my code is not dry. And that's kind of my next step is I know there's got to be a better way to do this, but I just have it functioning.
Gotcha. How about the same question on the front end?
Oh, yeah. So I started out thinking very separately, like here is a user view of all of their joys when they're logged out. And then this is how it is when it's public. And then and then I realized at the end, oh, it's all the same page. It just needs a lot of ifs. And so then when I started combining, I realized, ooh, components would make this way easier. So I'm really looking forward to redoing it with components, and that would make it a lot drier and not have the same methods put on every single page, etc.
That is a very good learning. I can appreciate that as well. So you talked a little bit about where you would want to take it going forward. Are there other pieces of technology that you would like to add to this, or that you can see being a really good fit that you could bring in and kind of approach as a way to move this even further?
Yeah, so I feel really good about how the back end is structured, but I think there's going to be better gems for doing more complicated search rather than me doing it kind of by hand, coding it. I found some gems about like the texting, being able to add that in. I'd like to be able to have things where you could have shared, like a circle, maybe it's a family unit or you and a partner are sharing, so some group parts. And I think, better understanding that there could be different front-end APIs that are sharing the same backend. So there could be a native web app, and there could be the website, which is a different front-end code base, and better understanding how that all integrates. Yeah, so I think those are kind of all on what I'd love to see happen.
Sounds like you're on your way to develop a roadmap. So good luck with that. I think it's great. I don't have any more questions for you.
Oh, well, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Kelly. Next up, we have Sam, and Peter will be paneling for Sam today.
All righty. So my name is Sam. I made an app called Funny Money that adds clarity to investment strategies. So this started when my friend Eugene made this group called See My Stocks, and he was taking daily portfolio performance and sharing it in the Slack channel. Now, if you have an investment account, a brokerage account, you know that at the end of the day, your day's trading information disappears and goes to the next day. So to combat that, he made this table instead, where people every day would come in and post their stuff, their performance. As you can see, there was about 5 users who were engaged and then a bunch of users who weren't, myself included. So I decided to turn this into an app instead. And Eugene doesn't know I built this yet. I'm excited to share this with him. So basic homepage. Let's log in Jay. All right, so Jay's logged in. Jay doesn't have any transactions. So let's add a transaction. This is connected to an Alpha Advantage API. It searches for relevance of keywords, so you don't have to type in exactly what the stock symbol is. So he's going to add CSIQ. He's a big fan of Canadian solar. All right, here we go. He bought a purchase price of $48.80. He bought 100 shares. All right, so that's going to get added to his portfolio. You can start seeing information populating. Cool. Let's add another transaction. He invested in ARC, and although it's been dipping lately, he invested at the right time. So he got it at 44.41, and he bought also 100 shares. He likes investing in pretty traditional tranches. Okay, so now we've got this portfolio. This is a pretty basic investment portfolio. You can see the market value of his investments. He's made $1.40 today, not a great day for Jay. The cost basis, basically how much he spent on his investments so far. All right. And then his gain loss over time, pretty good. That's a great return. Okay. So in the individual shows of these stocks, this index of his portfolio, you can also get that same information. You get a little bit more granularity. Now, at this point, we're just looking at a simple portfolio app. Of course, you can edit your transactions. You can delete your transactions. Great. What makes Funny Money a little bit different is you're able to join groups and share investment strategies. So let's find a group. let's see, Sam and Jay's investment group. So I actually made this one. I was hoping Jay would join it. Jay's going to join the group. So here's my information. Jay's going to join the group. And right here, now the group is populating both of our information. What makes this especially interesting is there is some discretion that happens in this table. So you actually don't see how much wealth I am investing with, which is really important when you're investing in stocks. You don't want people to necessarily know how wealthy you are, especially in American culture where talking about money is very taboo. It's better to show performance as opposed to net wealth. So in this case, you can see I invested in Costco, Tesla, Microsoft, Netflix. You can see my gain loss from the time that I invested, my day change in both percent and dollar value, because that's per share, and the percent of my portfolio. This was probably the most challenging part of my app, getting percent of portfolio to calculate per user without actually showing additional user information. My JavaScript for that was lengthy. So now that both of these users are in here, you can see their day change, their all-time percent change, and then for each user that gets added to the group, these averages change as well. Once we go back to our portfolio, you can now see that this group is within the groups that Jay is a part of, and he can also create groups. And that's as far as I got with the app. The next big steps for this would be creating admins for groups and having more of an invite system similar to what Chelsea built. I thought her app was absolutely awesome and was definitely peppering her with questions as our development process went along the way. Being able to have admins create groups, accept invites, of course, delete groups. And then where I'd really like to get is actually being able to link in some ability to work with actual portfolios. So you wouldn't have to update this as you make transactions, being able to actually pull some information from your actual brokerage account. That would be a long shot. And also being able to show more data, more graphs on the investments that you have. And there are APIs and plugins that would allow me to do that. Anyway, that's funny money.
All right, that's an awesome job, Samuel. In some cohorts past, I've had people work on, portfolio type apps. So I definitely know the complexity of a lot of the calculations that have to go behind making something like this work. All you see in the end is like, well, here's a percentage, and it's not completely wrong. So you know what I mean? But for us, we're just like, yeah, it says 73%. But knowing all of the calculations and the logic to get that going it's a tremendous effort. So congrats for getting this working. And, even though you were saying there's some, things that you would like to add to this, I can see this is already like a very, very functional thing that somebody could already jump into and get value out of it. So awesome job with that. I am curious what it was like working with the APIs for the financial information. Were you using just one API? Were there lots of API calls that you had to make? Were there any optimizations that you had to do to make this work well?
Great question. So I think my favorite branch that I made, or just like transition that I made in my APIs. So this add transaction API is calling on an Alpha Advantage API. So we can just type in anything. And if there's something close to it, it's going to pull up all the relevant information. Now, that is not the same API that I'm using for my portfolio. This is using IEX Cloud. I made this decision because our data limits were a lot greater on IEX Cloud. I get 500,000 calls a month. And on top of that, it passes more user data or more current info forward. So this was getting passed to my backend, and my backend was passing it forward. And then the IEX Cloud, I believe, was happening on my front end. The two APIs communicate because once a transaction symbol has been submitted into the add transaction, that passes that symbol over to the front end, which then loads the new API based on that new symbol. So where you can get in trouble is if you type in something that maybe isn't traded on a US exchange, then you actually break the API. So this was a little feature that I was happy with. So you get error in finding symbol. So it still passes something forward. Originally, this is actually breaking my entire index function. So that was definitely one of the complications I had to overcome while navigating, making two APIs connect to each other.
Yeah, no, that, like I said, that's a fantastic job. And the fact that it looks so seamless, belies a lot of the complexity back there. Cool. In terms of the actual calculations, I assume you had to write a lot of the logic yourself, that you weren't leaning on APIs because you're calculating like people's personal portfolios. Was that complicated? Did that take you a lot of time to get all those numbers to work correctly?
That's a great question as well. Yeah, that was the majority of my time. The majority of my time, similar to Tim, was spent in writing the fairly complex JavaScript on the front end, computed functions, a lot of variables getting passed to and from each other. Like doing a percent of portfolio in general, that's hard. That's a weighted average that you have to calculate. So yeah, each one of these columns has at least one fairly long, if not multiple fairly long JavaScript functions, especially in the group show. All of this information, once it gets calculated per column, gets passed back up into methods that then calculate these averages for the groups, which was pretty complicated. And the same for the individual user. The JavaScript there's a lot of it in this backend or in the front end, excuse me.
Yeah. Just in terms of the design, I just wanted to say it's a very sharp design. I know like it can be tricky working with these types of admin type themes because, there's, if you don't have the right amount of information on there, it's like a super plain looking thing, but you did a good job with the charts and the tables and all that kind of stuff. Was that tricky to work with, or did you feel like it just kind of came naturally with the theme itself?
I think it could not have come less naturally. So my first theme that I bought and downloaded was just not going to work. I was diving into the code, and finally I was just losing faith, and I talked to Amanda. I was like, can you take a look at this? Like, I don't even know where the information is coming from. And she took a look at it and she goes, oh no, this is like so component based, like not even like loosely component based. This is just deeply nested. So I had to navigate away from that app or that Bootstrap theme and found a different one for free that I was able to take some pretty big liberties with the CSS because it was pretty simple and straightforward. And I was able to make it my own because it was a very stock one that I could edit quite a bit.
Yeah. Like I said, like making just having clean looking tables the way you do, where the information can get presented in a way that people can see is far more challenging than you would first imagine. Like it's not hard to make a table, but to make a table that doesn't look like garbage, you know what I mean? That just makes every number look just the same, and being able to emphasize the information the way you have it here is really fantastic. Mm-hmm. Any features that surprised you as you were building this out? Anything that you were sort of pleasantly surprised with building, or what made you sort of the most excited when you got working?
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to connect to these really robust APIs. It has inspired what I want to work on next, like next project. I just didn't even realize the wealth of information that you can get for free. And I think that's been one of my big illuminating moments in writing code, is that like this information is just the tip of the iceberg that gets passed forward every single second. That's totally free to users. And yeah, I was blown away at the kind of information that I can pull. And then, you take this one API and you multiply it by millions, and there's a lot of information out there just waiting for people to mine and, make useful and make user friendly. That was super exciting.
Yeah. And then just one last question. You said this was inspired by something that your friend was doing and sharing. Is this something that maybe you haven't started this, but have you started actually trying to keep track of your own information in the same way to see if it would, sort of substitute that whole process that he's doing, or are there still things that need to get built before it would be a full substitute?
So I'm pretty ready to hand this off to him. The one other feature that I think he would find really useful is in the group. Being able to toggle, as opposed to just day and all time, being able to toggle like the time range that you want to look at, because that would really allow him to look at how are people's portfolios performing, and then implementing some sort of chat per group like Chelsea did. Those two features, I think if I got it to that point, I could hand it off to him. But in the meantime, what I've been trying to do is deploy this, and I'm having some issues connecting my GitHub to my Heroku. So that's my next big step.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting because I think, you're really close to that piece, and you actually, would have an actual audience that would be able to start using it right away. And then you'd be able to start getting that user testing going, you know what I mean? You kind of have an accelerated path, whereas a lot of other people, when they have, brand new applications, they have to start building that user base and, seeing if people would want to use it. And so the fact that you're this close to putting in front of real people and get some battle testing to the application is really exciting.
That's a really good point. I hadn't even thought of that. Thank you.
Yeah. But congrats again. It's a fantastic looking app.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. And last up for group one will be Lil, and Rachel will be paneling for Lil today.
All right. Hello, I'm Lil. And today my app that I'm going to be showing you is called Drinking Buddy. Drinking Buddy was inspired by the fact that I've worked in bars for most of my adult and some of my non-adult life. And I find that something that people often come in with is not knowing what they want. And so I came up with an idea for an app that would be able to both recommend you things as well as just know what you have in your fridge in your home and tell you that you can make this and not give something new a shot. So we're going to start by logging in Amanda, because Amanda was also a bartender for a long time, but maybe she doesn't know what she wants these days. She wants to try something new. I didn't know how to spell your name, Amanda. Don't worry. All right, so this is Amanda's brand new profile. She currently doesn't have any favorited recipes or anything in her fridge, which means she currently can't make anything. So all she really could do is delete her account. But let's get her something that she likes. Let's just take a chance. A Mai Tai, sounds great. But maybe she actually does know what she wants. So let's take a look at everything we have in our database. So this is going to be an index of every recipe that's currently in my database. I would like to look into APIs that could populate this, because currently all of this data are just things that I wrote personally. And it's not a very extensive list of drinks, but there are many that exist in the world. I think Amanda would also probably like a mojito, so we can favorite that as well. So now we can see both of her favorites are here. And if we head back to her profile, we can see that it has updated with her interests, but she still has nothing in her fridge. And the fridge is a very large part of this app that was very complicated for me. So let's log out and log into a different user, me. And we can see an example of what a fridge looks like when it is full of components. We have my favorite recipes, fan of a Pim's cup. But in my fridge here, we have a bunch of different ingredients. And because I have all of these things, I can make both a rusty nail and a pink lady. Pretty good. If I click on these, I can click onto the show page of this specific recipe, which has all the ingredients and the directions for it. And if I wanted to add something to my fridge, currently the user has to know how the database is set up. So you'd have to add something in by the ingredient ID, as well as having to refresh the page to see it populate here at the bottom. However, that is something that I plan to adjust in the future so that you can just type in by the name of the ingredients. In my code here, you can see the way that my database was created. And I learned a lot during this process. It started off as a much more simpler app where the only action was favoriting. And when I added in more ingredients and directions and all of these things, I came to realize that actually that it was much more complicated to have each recipe have many ingredients and how that can exist in different users' fridges. So that took up a lot of my time. And if we also look here on the front end, we can see that the fridge currently has several options to it. You can have whether your ingredients are in stock or out of stock. And once you decide that your ingredients are out of stock, you can decide, I'm never going to buy that again. So I'm never going to buy more Applejack, and it's removed from your list. And ideally, in future versions of this, I would also like to be implementing that this will update with whether they are in or out of stock. Now it's currently just whether it exists on your list. But for a future user, if they said, I don't have any simple syrup right now, but give me 20 minutes and I could have it, and they would be able to get that back in stock. We can also add new recipes to the website through the front end, because that is very slightly easier than populating it through the back end for me. However, it is still a little bit of a complicated beast. Let's try adding a Negroni, because I think those are delicious. We're going to make it and drink it. Pretty easy. And now we've added a new recipe to our database. And by editing it, we can add new ingredients to it. So this has also to be used with IDs instead of names, as well as adding in the amounts as a separate parameter. And once we reload this page, it'll populate here. Ideally, I would love that to happen without reloading the page. However, at this moment, there are still things where it's just a little bit less user-friendly than I would ideally like to have in the end. However, that is how adding things on the front end was in a way to make things easier, because on the back end, with all of the tables that I ended up having, that was even more difficult, just finding the correct placements for where you add in a liquor versus when you add in a mix-in. And though they are currently separated out into categories, I haven't had a chance yet to implement the categories, which ideally in the fridge would also show you how you could separate it out into this is what's in my cabinet versus what's in my toolbox for what, if you need a blender or not. And that is another component that I'm interested in implementing in the future. But for this moment, that is what Drinking Buddy is. It is an app for people who like to drink, but don't always know what they want. Thanks.
Very cool, very timely, I would have to say. Well done. It looks great. Makes me want a lovely blended beverage. So with this, obviously you've got a number of things that are kind of on the burners for you of things that you want to implement next to take it up another level. But can you tell me, for what you have in front of you, what's probably the thing that you're proudest of finding a problem, persevering, using your resources, and then getting it to the wonderful website that we see, or app that we see in front of us right now? Can you tell me about that experience?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I definitely think that the biggest struggles for me came in terms of my backend, just the database and the tables and models that I had to use to display something that looks very simple. Like specifically, if we just look at a recipe, this looks like a bunch of strings, but in reality, it's many different attributes that are Frankenstein together on the front end. So finding the connections between this is an ingredient that has now an attribute, an amount added onto the join table. So it's a specific amount just for this recipe and not universally. It's a choice that I made halfway through my project that I'm not sure I would make again. However, learning from it was really useful to really have an idea that you have to know how your data is going to be used, to give yourself flexibility to use it in many different ways. And also just trying to work around something that's a bigger trouble than it was supposed to be.
It's a huge learning, and you will never stop learning that, let me tell you. So with that, so you've got things that were unexpectedly harder. Is there anything that was unexpectedly easier, hopefully?
I'm not sure. I don't know if it was easier, but I really enjoyed implementing things on the front end. I definitely tend to be more of a visual person. I'm also an artist outside of this in my life. So just finding that there are all these interesting tweaks and ways that you can make things appear in certain scenarios. This is a Bootstrap theme. That was a good learning tool to just actually implement that, because it was easier than writing an entire CSS file from scratch. So I'll say that was easier, was finding a good theme out in the wild.
It's funny you mention that, because I know a lot of people who are artists have a really hard time swallowing that they have to use Bootstrap themes and take other people's visual ideas, etc., and move it onto their own. So way to work through that, because I know that that's definitely its own trouble. So in knowing what you've put together here, can you tell me about the resources or tools that you found to help you through those problems? Were there things online that you found? How did you find them? How will you use them in the future?
Absolutely. I think that particularly in this project, but also throughout the entirety of this boot camp, it's almost a meme how much you get off of Stack Overflow and how that is just so specifically a useful resource for everyone, regardless of the level of knowledge you have about coding. I found that particularly when it came to working out these complicated relationships between tables, if I just wrote a really specific question down on Stack Overflow, there was someone 5 years ago who had the exact same issue, and that finding ways to implement that made it much easier to find a new solution instead of spending an hour trying to write something new from scratch. Someone else had already figured it out.
Very true. Very true. Okay, one last question. What's the thing that you loved working on this the most?
Interesting. I mean, I really enjoyed the struggle of it, if that makes any sense. I really enjoyed how challenging a lot of these parts were. It's like a big puzzle, and every time there was something that I just couldn't figure out or that seemed so much harder than it was supposed to be. Like, you would think favoriting something would be a simple task, but in reality, it was this huge, complicated thing that just getting to think through it was really fun. And I enjoyed all the little aha moments that you get to have along the way. So yeah, I enjoy the puzzles.
For sure. They'll never stop. Never stop stopping. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Lil. That brings us to the end of the first half of our presentations. We are going to take a short break. We'll be back at 1:45 Central with the rest of our cohort and 2 new panelists. Thank you so much, Peter and Rachel, for joining us today. And we'll be back shortly.